Sigma has the focal length that working pros want, 300 to 600 millimeters, along with the speed to match, a constant f4. It's why this design is selling out everywhere. For the past 6 months, we've been facing a shortage worldwide. And even with the sticker price flirting $7,000 and the carrying weight near 9 pounds, I'll show you why this formula wins in the field, why supply can't keep up, and what it means for Canon shooters waiting for Canon's own RF 300 to 600 millimeter f4 to 5.6. Click subscribe and we'll get right to it. It means more to us than pulling focus through a goalie's net. Hi, I'm Simon, your friendly camera news hound who likes to scan the news and rumor sites, patent filings, and pro forums so that you don't have to, saving you time for more important things like actually shooting instead of watching for specs. Focaux Prouvé, the general manager for Sigma France, said that the 300 to 600 millimeter f4 faces a global shortage, and that the first deliveries in March are only now just arriving in dribs and drabs, with factory capacity of around 100 units per month to be shared worldwide. And that, folks, is organic scarcity from genuine demand, not some sort of manufactured hype, although there is a caveat to that, which I'll get to in just a moment. The big question for now is, why is there so much demand? And the simple answer is range plus speed. At 300 millimeters, you frame midfield. At 600 millimeters, you isolate eyes, talons, and apex moments with the same exposure math across the zoom because it's f4. And that's end-to-end constant aperture from 300 to 400 millimeter. Compared to a 600 millimeter f4 prime at roughly double the money, this zoom trades a touch of ultimate bokeh purity for massive flexibility, and professionals are voting with their wallets. Current pricing sits at around $65.99, and the weight is just under 9 pounds at 8.75 pounds or 3.97 kilograms. And the mirrorless angle? Well, it matters as well. Sigma explains that the correction algorithms internal to the cameras have improved considerably. We can rely on more of these advances and reduce the number of lens groups or lens elements. This is the real advantage of hybrid cameras, which lets designers deliver more compact, lighter optics without giving up real-world performance. That philosophy also shows up in Sigma's 35mm f1.2 version 2, and it carries into modern zoom design thinking. And this is something we've seen an awful lot from Canon patents over the past 2 to 3 years. They're constantly reducing the size and weight and number of components. Case in point here. This is Canon's 200 to 500 millimeter. And yes, it's huge. I'm holding it right up against my torso. You can see how big this thing is. But surprisingly, it's not very heavy at all. It feels solid in the hands, but again, it's not a Pro Series lens. It is built for consumers. So let's use a different example of something that is built for pros. And this is an L series, the 100 to 500 millimeter f4 to 7.1, or is it the f4.5 to 7.1? I use it all the time, but I'll put it right here. But this lens also feels super light. Now, traveling with this, because it's an L series, it's built tough. It's got a lens barrel that's made out of, well, lightweight metals, magnesium, aluminum, or an aluminium magnesium blend. It's amazing what we can deliver with the advances that we've seen. Lightweight, smaller, more compact, less components, but also better design components. So the ribbon cables that are inside these, and there are built to handle thousands upon zooms. And that's truly impressive. So, the availability of the Sigma 300 to 600 millimeter signals that it's a top seller. There's long wait lists, drip feeding of inventory, and zero discounting at any retailer anywhere. And pre-order pages across all majors, well, we see a monthly trickle through of units. It also tells us that Sigma badly underestimated the demand of the lens. Now, we talked about this just about a minute ago. I said that this isn't a manufactured. And some might say, yeah, but they should have planned. Well, this is a $6,600 lens. That's a lot of money. And if Sigma aired and produced a lot, but there wasn't a demand, well, that really impacts on their profit and loss for the quarter, or could really hurt the company if they produce too many. So they figured, like Canon did with this 200 to 800 millimeter, it took about 10 months before all pre-orders on the day it was announced to ship through. 10 months. And I think we're seeing the same thing with Sigma. They completely underestimated demand. Now, Sigma was also asked about the Chinese competition. We have a little time before we see them coming in our rearview mirror. We don't want to be overconfident, but we're not afraid either. For Canon RF shooters and for Canon themselves, the takeaway is simple. The market has validated the 300 to 600 millimeter focal range with a constant f4 aperture and at a price of $65.99. But Canon is going with a variable aperture and f4 to 5.6. But Canon is going with a variable aperture of f4 to 5.6. And that's significant because that should cut the weight meaningfully versus a constant f4 design, mainly because at 600 millimeters, the entrance pupil shrinks from about 150 millimeters to 107. And that's a subtle but significant change. It allows Canon to drop the weight and allow us to get this lens possibly down to as light as 5.7 pounds. That's Canon 200 to 500 millimeter territory and significantly less than Sigma's 8.75 pounds. What variable does at 600 millimeters at 5.6 is reduce the correction burden, making high performance easier to achieve per kilogram, essentially for giving up one stop of light and exposure consistency. Translation? Well, simply better optics. So, if Canon can come in with a lighter and better set of optics for the 300 to 600 millimeter f4 to 5.6, with Canon's large market share position, Canon won't have trouble selling out immediately, putting the RF 300 to 600 millimeter f4 to 5.6 LIS USM on their apologies for not shipping products page. The key takeaway here is that Sigma's 300 to 600 millimeter with a constant aperture of f4 at $65.99 is a winning formula. It's sold out, still sold out, months after it was announced. Now with a lighter version and better optics by Canon, by accepting an f5.6 at the tight end, Canon sales of the RF 300 to 600 millimeter will most definitely explode so long as the optical quality at 600 millimeter f5.6 is as good as or better than Sigma's at 600 millimeter f4. The only bad news is you're going to have to wait. Sigma is pumping out 100 units per month, and Canon hasn't even released their lens, but it's expected sometime in November. If you're interested in ordering the Sigma 300 to 600 millimeter f4 or pre-ordering the Canon RF 300 to 600 millimeter when it's available, then please use my affiliate links down below. My links for Adorama and B&H in the United States, Wex Photo and Video in the United Kingdom, and Photocall in Europe. Now this channel is very much viewer supported, getting a small commission off each sale, keeping this channel sponsorship free. I just don't like using sponsorships. I think in most cases the sponsorship has nothing to do with the content and the video feels very much like a vehicle for the ad. Thank you. Thank you for using my links, for commenting, and for subscribing. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and punch that subscribe button. It's very much appreciated. Oh, one other thing, if you happen to have overheard anything about the upcoming Canon EOS R6 Mark III, the R7 Mark II, any lenses, or anything on the Nikon Z9 Mark II, or the Sony a7 IV, well, let me know. Reach out to me, simondyates@gmail.com. It's very much appreciated. And for those areas where I don't have a smart pre-order links, order links in Asia, Africa, and where else am I missing? Australasia? Then if you're aware of any retailers that have affiliate programs, let me know in the comment section or reach out to me via email and I can bring them on board. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day and we'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.